Everyone, welcome to The Explainer. So today, we are taking on one of the most persistent and honestly most frustrating myths in the entire fitness world. If you've ever felt completely exhausted trying to just tone up one specific body part and gotten literally zero results, yeah, you're not alone. We're going to break down the actual biology behind fat loss today. And trust me, what we uncover is going to permanently change the way you train. Let's get into it.
Let's start with a scenario that, well, pretty much all of us are painfully familiar with. You want visible abs or maybe leaner thighs, right? So you do crunch after crunch, leg lift after leg lift. You put in all this endless, exhausting work on these highly localized exercises, and nothing. Crickets. Zero results. Why does that happen? I mean, it feels incredibly unfair, but it's not a lack of effort on your part. It's actually a fundamental misunderstanding of how our biology operates. Because you see, the body just doesn't pull fuel from the immediate area you happen to be flexing.
Okay, let's dive into this. To understand why we can't just miraculously burn fat off our bellies or our hips on command, we have to look at the four biological pillars of fat storage. That's genetics, hormones, activity and nutrients, and evolution.
Starting with factor number 1, genetics. Simply put, your family history, your DNA. That acts as the absolute foundational blueprint for your body's preferred fat storage map.
Moving right along to factor number 2, and this one is a biggie, hormones. Our bodies are essentially complex chemical machines, right? And different tissues across the body possess entirely different hormonal receptors. Think of them like specific docking stations. And this brilliantly illustrates what I mean. Take fat tissue in your hips, glutes, and breasts. It has a really high concentration of estrogen receptors. So, naturally, higher estrogen means more fat stored in those exact zones. And that's true whether you're a man or a woman. Then we have insulin. If you're dealing with insulin resistance, your body basically becomes a giant magnet for visceral fat. That's the fat stored deep inside the abdomen. And finally, elevated cortisol drives fat directly to the face, the neck, and the flanks.
But here's the crazy part. The hidden danger of cortisol, our primary stress hormone, goes way deeper than just moving fat around. When you are under chronic stress, cortisol doesn't just redistribute the fat you already have. It literally has the power to transform cells called pre-adipocytes, which are basically little baby cells that don't hold fat yet, into fully mature active fat cells. So chronic stress is biologically building brand new storage containers for fat in your body. How wild is that?
Okay, factor 3 is activity and nutrients. While it's definitely a smaller piece of the overall puzzle, localized blood flow and enzyme activity actually can make specific zones a bit more or less prone to holding on to fat. And finally, we have factor 4, evolution and survival.
Now, throughout human history, accumulating fat in strategic areas was actually a brilliant evolutionary tactic. It ensured we had enough stored energy to survive famines, to reproduce, and ultimately to sustain humanity. Now today, our modern beauty standards demand us to be super lean and toned. But if we rewind, say 27,000 years, the ideal was the complete opposite. Just look at the Venus of Willendorf, a statue from 25,000 BC. She depicts a very corpulent figure with high percentages of strategically distributed fat. Back then, what we curse today as stubborn fat was quite literally the ultimate symbol of fertility, the ability to sustain a pregnancy, and raw human survival. Your body is basically just doing what kept your ancestors alive.
So, with all of that evolutionary and biological context in mind, the science points to one undeniable truth, and it's a hard truth. You cannot choose where you will lose fat. Period. Our bodies simply do not have a mechanism to burn fat from one specific localized area just because we are exercising that muscle. No way around it. We really have to completely shatter this spot reduction myth once and for all.
So what does this all mean? What actually happens when we lose weight?
Well, fat is lost globally, across your entire body. But here is the crucial catch. The specific area where you desperately want to lose fat usually has the highest volume of fat stored. Because of your genetics and hormones, it's basically the main deposit. This means even if you successfully drop a massive 10% of your total body weight in fat, which by the way is an incredible achievement, your problem area simply has the most volume to get through. It will physically be the absolute last place to look visibly leaner, even though you've been successfully losing fat there the whole time. Okay, so how do we actually work with our biology instead of constantly fighting against it? It's time for the Real Solutions Playbook.
Step 1 on our playbook, you absolutely must fix the root hormonal imbalances first.
If you have insulin resistance causing you to store visceral belly fat, or maybe an excess of estrogen impacting your hips, you have to address those baseline levels through your diet and lifestyle. Why is this so absolutely crucial? Because if you simply starve yourself to lose weight without repairing that hormonal root cause, the very moment you regain any weight in the future, your body is going to immediately send that fat straight back to those exact same stubborn spots.
Moving to step 2, we need to optimize your exercise for fat loss. You want to aim for 100 to 120 beats per minute. This is the ideal zone 2 cardio range for someone in their 30s or 40s. Now, if you are in your 50s, it might be slightly lower, maybe around 100 to 110. Using a smartwatch to track your heart rate and actually staying within this specific, moderate zone is incredibly strategic when your primary goal is burning fat. So the crucial point here is understanding exactly why Zone 2 is so effective compared to just going all out. When you do lower intensity exercises, like a brisk walk or a light jog, right in that Zone 2 heart rate range, your body actually extracts a much higher percentage of its fuel directly from your fat stores. Conversely, when you do high-intensity intervals, which don't get me wrong are fantastic for overall fitness, your body panics for quick energy and draws a lower percentage of its fuel from fat. It relies way more on stored carbohydrates. So for pure fat burning, steady and moderate really does win the race.
Step 3 requires a little bit of tough love, extreme patience. You literally cannot abandon the process just because your belly or your thighs aren't shrinking in week 2. Remember our biology lesson a minute ago. The area with the most fat is biologically scheduled to show visible changes last. If you quit early because your problem area hasn't transformed yet, you are guaranteeing failure right before the finish line. You really have to trust the global fat loss process. Hang in there.
Which brings us to step 4, build the underlying foundation.
Look, while we can't spot reduce fat, we absolutely have the power to spot build muscle. If your goal is aesthetic, like having defined visible abdominal muscles, lowering your overall body fat is really only half the battle. You have to actually build the muscle underneath so that when the fat shrinks, there's something impressive there to reveal. You need to train your core exactly like you would train your biceps or your chest. Stop doing 100 unweighted crunches. Honestly, that's basically just light cardio. You must use progressive overload. This means performing weighted crunches and weighted leg raises and gradually increasing the weight over time. You have to force the muscle to tear and grow back thicker and stronger to get that true aesthetic definition.
Finally, if you want to track all of this perfectly, you should know that the bathroom scale is often going to lie to you. It just can't tell the difference between fat, muscle, and water. So for those who want objective, hard data on their global fat loss journey, look into getting a DEXA scan. It's a specialized body composition test that measures your exact fat and muscle distribution across every different area of your body. It is literally the ultimate tool to see that your hard work is actually paying off, even if the mirror hasn't quite caught up yet.
Well, we've covered the genetics, the hormones, the evolutionary history, and the real hard science of burning fat globally while building muscle locally. You are now armed with the actual facts, not just fitness industry fairy tales. So, my final question to you is this. Now that you know the biological truth, how will you rewrite your workout routine today? Stop fighting your biology, start working with it, and I'll see you in the next explainer.